Hello everyone, welcome to the CAC 321 Operating System Lab. So in today's lab, we'll be learning about the basic shell commands and how to operate a Linux-based operating system using the existing terminal. Now, before I start with the terminal and the basic shell commands, let us get familiar with the operating system. Now, I know that for most of you, it is the first time that you are working with a Linux operating system. So let us see how to basically use this operating system and how this operating system actually works. Then we'll see how to interact with the operating system using the terminal. Okay, so in this video we'll be learning about the basic functionality of the operating system and how it works. Now, the operating system or the Linux distribution that I'm going to be using is the Ubuntu 18. Now, when you install the operating system and boot it for the first time, you'll see this login screen, and basically you have to type your password, and then it should get you in. Okay, so let me type my password. Okay, so after logging in, you should see a screen something like this. Ignore the top and bottom white part. These are from the virtual machine that I'm using, a virtual box. So these are not the part of the actual operating system. So don't actually just focus on this. Okay, now our actual operating system user interface starts from here and then ends over here. Okay, so at first we should see a screen something like this. Now this is called the desktop. It is similar to the desktop we are used to in the Microsoft operating system, Windows. However, there are some dissimilarities. Now, as you can see that there is no bottom taskbar. Instead, we have a dock on the left. Now, by default, it's on the left, but you can change it however you want. You can put it on the bottom if you are more familiar with this. Okay, now since I'm using Ubuntu 18, now Ubuntu 18 uses something called GNOME as its desktop environment. Now, Linux distribution uses different desktop environments, and the desktop environments basically are the user interface. Okay, now since I'm using Ubuntu 18, Ubuntu 18 uses GNOME desktop environment, and if any other distribution uses the same desktop environment, you should see similar layout. Okay, now on top we have the menu bar, and here you'll see something called activities. If you click over here, this window will give you all the open apps, or you can simply type a new app and then open it. Say for example, if I want to initiate terminal, I can just search over here and then click, and as you can see my terminal is running. Now if I click activities again, and then as you can see, you can have multiple desktop environments, and then within a desktop environment you can see all the running windows. Okay, so I have only one window open, so it's just showing here. Now after that we have on the middle the dates and time. So if you click over here, you'll see all your notifications and your calendar on the right side. On the left we have the our system status. So as you can see, I have now clicking on here, you give you some more options. So here you will see your wired Ethernet connection or your Wi-Fi connection, your settings. So in the setting you can change all sort of things. You can change the layout, the colors, how the windows should look, and then the position of the dock. So it's on the left. You can, if you want, you can put it on the bottom, and you can also make it smaller, and there are also other settings all available over here. Now if I go to the about section, as you can see, this is my computer. Oh sorry, I'm using actually Ubuntu 20, so not 18. So I'm using Ubuntu 20, and see, it's GNOME version. So basically it's using a GNOME desktop environment. Now in the previous Ubuntu builds, like Ubuntu 16, Ubuntu used something called Unity as its desktop environment. So now they're shifting to GNOME. So you'll see some some similarities and some dissimilarities, but they tried to keep the layout more or less similar. So it shouldn't be a problem if you're used to with the Ubuntu 16 and then moving on to 18 or 20 or vice versa. Okay, so this was our layout on the desktop. So this is basically it, and here you will find that there are 9 dots. So if you click over here, it will just show all of your application, and there are 2 tabs. In the frequent, you'll see the all your frequent application, and in all you have all of your installed application. Okay, so that is more or less same, and you can always add more icons in the dock, and you can add more icons in the desktop. You can create new folder similar to Windows. You can right click for more options. You can drag and position it. So these are like more or less similar to the Windows operating system, so it should not be a problem. Okay. Okay, now we will learn about the file structure of a Linux based operating system. Now when I open the file manager, you'll see a familiar layout. You have your folders, etc., and it is similar to the Windows based operating system. Whenever you fire up the file explorer, you see similar folders, right? Documents, downloads, music, pictures, etc., etc. However, there is something missing. There are no drives. See, in Windows we have drives: C drives, D, E, F, and basically the C drive stores all the system information, the operating system files, and the DE, all other drives, just you can just keep them separated. However, in a Linux-based operating system, you don't have drives, because the Windows operating system basically evolved from something called MS-DOS, or the Microsoft Disk Operating System. So it kept the same philosophy throughout the generation. Before, the A and B later was assigned for the floppy drives, because back then it was a thing. Now it is gone. So now basically we start from C and then D, E, F, and so on. Now in Linux there are no drives. Okay. By the way, one more thing. In Windows we call these things folders. However, in the Unix philosophy we call them directories. Okay. Now you can call them folders if you want, but however in the original Unix philosophy we used to call it directories. Okay. Even though whenever we launch the file manager we land in here, this is not our root directory. Okay. So if we go back, okay, this is it. Now this is called the root directory. The way Linux file structure works is something called the file hierarchy standard, or FHS. So the file hierarchy standard architecture uses something called root directory, and from that root directory it maintains a tree. So each and every directory is a node of that tree, and it expands and branches out and expands, and on the leaf we have the files. Okay, so this structure is basically like a tree which starts from the root and then continues to branch out, and the more directories you create, the more it branches out, and on the leaf we have typically the files. Okay, in a Unix based operating system everything is a file. So we will see in a few minutes, but we have to keep in mind that these directories are basically branching out from the root. Okay, and then we have different files. These are all files. Everything is a file. Okay, now in Mac operating system you will see something like this, similar to this, and because Mac is also evolved from Unix, more accurately the BSD version of the Unix. So again, same design philosophy. Okay, now I'll briefly describe the purpose of these directories. First, we have the bin, and we have something called sbin. So bin and sbin basically store the binaries or the application or the packages that we install. Boot contains all the bootloader file, all the EFI files, and grub is basically the grub is basically the bootloader used for this operating system. So it has all the files necessary to boot the operating system. CD-ROM contains all the necessary files to operate a CD-ROM. Dev is basically for the devices. Now if I go over here, you will see we have all sort of files. Now in Windows we have drives, but as I've said earlier, in a Linux based operating system, everything is a file. So as you can see, the SDA, this SDA is basically one of the drives that we are using in this operating system, and SDA1, 2 are the partitions of the drive. Okay, now here is all files, because in Linux everything is a file. Okay, ETCs, etc. Here you will find the system-wide configuration of different applications, and in home is the user's home directory. So here you will find all of the users. Here's my user, and then I have all these files over here. So whatever the user stores in, the user, say you download something or you are making a document or you're trying to save something, is going to save in this user's directory. Now depending on how many users you will have multiple directories. Okay, then we have lib32, lib64. These are the library files for the operating system and for the applications to interact with, all these libs. And then the media and MNT are the mounting points. So whenever you put a pen drive or external hard drive, they will mount over here. Now it's empty because I haven't plugged in anything. If you plug in anything, it will mount over here. So MNT and media are the mounting points. Now MNT is, now media is automatically, the media directory contains the drives or the network devices that are automatically detected and mounted by the operating system, and MNT contains all the manually mounted drives. OPT is an optional. It can be used by other applications to store files. Proc is the processes. So you can see all of the processes that are running currently in this operating system, and each process has an ID. These are the process IDs, and within that process all the necessary files are stored for that process to use. Okay, next up we have the root. So root is basically the root user's home directory. So the root user is basically the super user of an operating system who has the administrative privileges. Then we have run. Run is something that stores the files temporarily. So every time you boot, this directory is populated, and every time you turn your computer off, these files are gone. So these are all temporary files that are populated during the boot time. Okay, so the run contains basically the runtime files, whatever they required for the runtime. You shut that computer and it's gone. So sbin, we have described it already. Snap is our snap packages. So whatever we install over here using the snap package manager, it will install over here. SRV is used for the server. So if you are running a server in this operating system, all your server files should be over here. So the sys is the system files. So as you can see, so these are all the system files, and as you can see, the Linux kernel also lives here. So this is our kernel's directory. So this is our Linux kernel, and all the other required files can be found over here, the drivers and etc. Okay, the TMP directory contains the temporary files. So whenever an application or the system needs to store something temporarily, so it will be stored over here. So say for example you're writing a document or using a document processing software, and so in the background it will automatically save your files temporarily, and it should go over here. USR is the user's configuration files over here. So all of the user's configuration file will be over here, and uh, the user's application that the system doesn't depend on will also be installed over here. So as you can see, the user has its own bin directory, so it will have all of those applications installed over here. Okay, and the var is variable, so this directory is expected to populate over time the more you use the operating system. So as you can see, the log, so it will create all the log files whenever you are using an operating system application or a user application. So the logs will be stored over here, and you have something called crash. It will store the crash reports of both the application softwares and the system softwares. Okay, so this is it. Now you will find this similar pattern of directories more or less on every Linux based operating system. Now there can be some dissimilarities depending on the distribution that you are using, but it will be more or less the same. Even in the Mac operating system, you will see something like this. Even in the Android, so if you are using Android is also based on Linux. So in the Android's root directory, you will also find something like this. Now you might have heard rooting an Android phone. So rooting an Android phone is basically meaning that you gain access to this super user. So you basically have access to the administrative privileges, so you can modify any system files. Whoever has the root access, the administrative privilege, can basically modify any file, any system file, anything, and then change the operating system. Now by default, obviously the Android phone manufacturers doesn't allow the ability to customize the system based the system level files. So if you root your phone, you will gain access to those files and can modify accordingly. Okay, so this is it for this video. Thank you for watching. In your next video, we'll be learning about the basic shell commands and how to interact with the operating system using the terminal. Thank you so much.